Welcome to Friends and Neighbors. I'm Sherry Tatum, your host for the day, and I am so glad you're here with us because I have got Katie Kenny Phillips here with me, and she is the author of some children's books that you might be interested in. And I'm going to show you the God, You Make Me Feel Safe. She has a series of this. God, You Make Me Feel Special. And God, You Make Me Feel Loved. Now, see, we have all those up there on the screen, but she's got another one coming out called Jesus Loves Everybody. And isn't that the truth, Katie? Welcome to Friends and Neighbors. Now, I see the series you've got going on with God, You Make Me Feel. So what's the next one? You Make Me Feel Safe?
Well, we have a whole list of topics that we would love to cover. So they're in the works. We're thinking them through.
Well, now, how did you, well, let's start off. Did you go to college to be an author? How did you become this author?
Well, I did go to the University of Michigan, and I was a creative writing major, and I specialized in children's writing. And I always laugh because I say that my parents were very supportive because that's kind of an odd major to have and not very marketable. But it was my passion. So I have been writing my whole life. And I've written blogs and articles, and I work for Shanti Feldhahn as her senior writer and editor. So I've done a lot of writing. And
oh, now did Shanti help you with this?
Well, Shanti is like my mentor.
I love her.
I work very closely with her, and I actually met my publisher, iDisciple Publishing, through her because she does devotionals through iDisciple. So I started my relationship with them that way.
So how does one come up with, like, because you said, like on the picture, especially this one with the llama, it's so precious, that the lady that does your artwork is in Africa. So how do you come up with the words? And then she puts all these really cute pictures all through this book. Do you get on the computer together? Does the Lord give you these ideas?
Oh, well, I think God is the mastermind behind all of these creative projects. But, you know, in writing the story, brainstorming different, we call them our mascots, our cute little characters that go with these books. We put together a Pinterest board with different ideas and animals and what we want the colors to look like. And she and I, the illustrator, Mika van der Marver, she lives in South Africa, and she is just a brilliant artist. And we, yes, thank goodness for technology. We get on Zoom calls, and we get to talk it through, and she is just amazing. I always joke that I send her little sketches on sticky notes, and I'm a terrible artist, so she sees these horrible stick men on sticky notes, and she turns them into works of art.
I know. I was just looking at them before the show, and that one.
Our little hedgehog.
The hedgehog. That's the hedgehog. Yeah. He is adorable, and I'm thinking, how in the world does someone put all this together? Yeah. But you've done it, and you've done it most wonderfully. And Jesus loves everybody. I wish you could maybe do a real close-up on this and see all the different children, all the different races, you know, different hair colors, different ways of thinking. How did you come up with that idea, Katie?
Well, the idea came actually during one of my quiet times over the summer. And, you know, in this world that feels divided and angry, and it feels hard. It feels like we're not loving each other the way we should.
Right.
And the verse from the Bible, John 15:12, came to mind that Jesus commands us to love others how he loves us.
Right.
And so this book is really fun because it walks kids through different stories in the New Testament where Jesus meets all sorts of different people who looked like him, people who didn't look like him, and
or thought like him.
Or thought like him, angry people, happy people, people who made good choices, people who made bad choices.
Yes.
And Jesus loved them all.
Absolutely.
And he commands us to love others the same way.
Absolutely.
So I'm really hoping that kids can start seeing people through that Jesus lens.
Well, you know, the Bible says, love one another as I have loved you. And that's a big thing because a lot of times people aren't very nice to you, or you think, oh, they don't think like I think, or they don't like what I like, but we're to love them anyway. And I want to tell, if you don't mind, can I tell a little short story here about on Steve Harvey's show? He had two little boys on there. One was Black American and one was a white Caucasian American. And they were like 6 years old, and they thought they were twins. And the thing about it is, they went to school together, and they had twin day, so they came as twins. They had the same outfit on, and Steve Harvey asked both of them, said, well, what makes you think y'all are twins? And both of them said, because he's my friend. You know, that's all they saw, Katie. They did not see color. They didn't see any difference. They just saw a friend. And oh, if we could learn from children how to perceive, how to treat others, how to love one another regardless, don't you think this world would be a much better place if we did? And I think that maybe is what you're trying to do, is to help us to see maybe through the eyes of a child, because they are so innocent. So, moving along, what do you see in the future for Katie Kenny Phillips with your books?
Oh, well, my prayer with all of them is that they would just reach families, reach parents and kids to start conversations. And
yes.
In the Bible, it says that Jesus said, do not stop the children from coming to me. And I hope these books help parents bring their kids to Jesus.
Absolutely. What about, have you thought about Sunday school, that they could be so useful in a Sunday school class where little ones go? How wonderful it would be if people had your books in their Sunday school class.
Well, I would love that. And I know some people have purchased sets of books for their Sunday school classes in their churches. I know some people have purchased sets to go into their preschools within the churches.
Yes.
I'd love it. I would love every child to get the message at a very early age that Jesus wants a relationship with them. He's crazy about them
He
and
loves
wants them to know him.
You know what would tickle me, Katie, is if I turned on the television one day, and there they had the series of the cartoons, your books made into cartoons.
Oh, well, let's make that happen.
Well, let's do it. I mean, hey, we're starting right here. We've got a good start right here. Oh, that was them calling about the cartoon. Yes, calling for you.
We're ready.
So now I know that you love children. I know that beyond the shadow of a doubt just by these books, but I also know that you have two children that are adopted, and you know a lot about adoption and about foster care. Could you tell us that, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know the steps or what you do or how life goes with an adopted child. What are some of the steps that you went through to adopt your children?
Well, we ended up starting a foster care and adoptive ministry at our church because we didn't have one. And I highly recommend going through the church, because the church is really the place to support and equip families to help. Okay. And so I always recommend people look for a ministry at their church or a Christian foster care agency to get some information. But for us, we started thinking that we were going to be a foster family for 10, 20, 30 kids.
Wow.
We'll have a place for kids, and we'll help them heal and then send them back and bring on the next child. And that's just not the story that God wrote.
That's not it.
We got a phone call. We have 3 biological kids, and then we got a phone call, and in walks a 4-year-old boy and a 4-month-old girl. Oh. And
did you know immediately that these are the ones that need you?
I say that it took 3 days. It took 3 days before I was like, I'll sign on the dotted line. But that's not how foster care works. Foster care is really designed to reunite kids and families if it is safe and healthy. Okay. And so reunification is the goal. So it's a really interesting.
And that's better. That's really better.
It is, and
Yeah.
it's a really a broken and beautiful journey to love kids as your own, but
Yes.
know that they are not yours.
Right.
And that you're loving them and caring for them, and also at the same time loving and caring for their biological parents.
Is it a very involved process
It is, yeah.
to adopt a child?
You take training and you go through classes, and yeah, it is. You do a lot of training to figure out if it's the right step for you and for your family.
Yeah. So you said you had 3 biological children. How did that all work for you with 2 adopted children? How did the 3 of your children get along? How was that situation?
Right. I hear a lot of people who say, I'm not totally sure I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that to my biological kids.
Yes.
And how did that affect your kids? And I like to pull out my phone and show pictures of the span of ages is my oldest is 10 years older than my youngest. And I show pictures of my oldest son holding the hand of a little tiny toddler girl walking. And that's what it does to your kids. And it's hard, it's not easy. It really disrupts your life, but in a good way.
Right.
Because you're doing mission work in your own home.
Yeah. So do you think it'll be different when they all get older? You know, maybe some rivalry there? We got a minute, I'm sorry, for you to answer that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's always rivalry between them because they're siblings. They're real, true siblings.
Yes.
But I think that when you're doing what God calls you to, the hard work is good work.
Absolutely.
It's worth it.
Well, you're precious, and I appreciate you being here. My brother was also adopted. We adopted him when he was 6 weeks old. That was 60 years ago. And he is my brother. He is in heaven now. He's passed away. But I want to thank you, Katie, for being here. I love your books, and I hope you give me one before you go.
You're welcome to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being here with us and friends and neighbors. And remember, the God Makes You Feel series that Katie has written. See you next time.
Hello, I'm joined here with the author of Made Up, Martha Laham. She has written this wonderful book that is very educational, and it talks about how the beauty industry manipulates consumers, preys on women's insecurities, and promotes unattainable beauty standards. I am delighted, Martha, to have this time together. Thank you for joining me and digging deep into this world of beauty.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Sandra.
Well, I am really excited to dig into your book. This is a wealth of information. We women, really strive to look our best, be our best, do our best, but sometimes we lack the ability to, sometimes we assume a lot, things that are already thrown out there in the drugstore or in the beauty stores. We feel like, hey, maybe that they have gone through a process, but your book actually talks about the history of how the beauty industry started, and really that assumptions are not very healthy for our body, correct?
That's absolutely right. And before I wrote this book, and I think like many of your viewers and consumers, that cosmetics goes through the pre-market approval process through the Food and Drug Administration, which regulates food, drug, and cosmetics. But this isn't the case. There is no pre-market approval required for cosmetics except for color additives, as there generally is for drugs, to prove their efficacy and their safety.
That's astounding, and I'm sure a lot of people are now in the culture that we find ourselves in, the world, in the communities that we find ourselves, who are really seeking transparency, and we're seeking knowledge. And I think that now in this day and age, we really are doing more of a research. So your book is really amazing about unmasking what the beauty industry has kind of set up for us. You know, we live in a world that we have a lot of filters in our telephones and our social media that make us look a certain way, and we kind of just jump into that because why do we do that? Can you help us understand that a little bit? Why do women do that so much?
I think part of it is culture. Beauty actually is something that people have strived for throughout the ages. And in my book, I even talk about during the Neanderthal period, during the Bronze Age, was the first time that we saw evidence of some kind of body paint use. So this has been something, beauty is part of the culture. What happens when suddenly it becomes the most important asset in a woman's life, which we call the feminine beauty ideal, and that all women should strive for beauty, and that will lead or equate to happiness and success. So we conflate the two, happiness, beauty, success.
Yes.
And I think that's really where the danger may be, is if we just define ourselves based on our outward appearance. I think most women do not, but we do have this growing cultural obsession with appearance and image in our culture today.
You know, in chapter 3 of your book, you write, the title of it is called The Beauty Seekers. So talk to me a little bit about that. What does your chapter really talk about in that regard?
Well, it actually talks about the beauty industry's most valuable consumers. And the heaviest buyers of beauty products are millennial women. And these are women between the ages of 24 and 39. Yet, Generation X and baby boomer women are just as valuable to market growth within the industry. So together, they become the most valuable consumers of the industry. I also talk about Generation Z, and we're looking at about 8 to 23, the older Gen Zers have a fascination with beauty at a very early age, and much of that, I think, is driven by social media. At the same time, the beauty industry has kind of forgotten the silent generation, which are women between the age of 75 to 95. And the fact is the beauty industry has chased the youth market because it's worked in the past. But one argument is nowadays it is crucial for beauty companies to use age agnostic marketing.
So age agnostic marketing. Talk to me a little bit about that. What does that mean again?
And so age agnostic marketing is understanding that there are these viable market segments, and we're using generational marketing when we talk about, millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, and that every market is viable. For women like me, I'm a baby boomer. I fall right in that category of 55 to 74. And I know my beauty needs have changed. So it's important, and there's research on this, that my needs have changed. So the beauty industry, if they wish to address me, and baby boomers are a very large segment, we have a lot of spending power, then they need to speak to me and address me very differently and attend to my needs as they are now, Sandra, not like they were 20 years ago.
Exactly. I think that the universal, it's not as universal as a lot of a blanketed type of here's what works for you. Our skin is the largest organ in our body, correct? And
yes.
We've got to take good care of it. Do you find that there are people in different generations, especially the ones that have learned through past experiences, their skin didn't work out this way, that way, that the industry is now marketing in a more organic sense and more transparency so that people will, people are worried about what they're putting on their faces.
Absolutely. Natural and organic. There's a tremendous amount of organic growth, we will say, sales growth in the area of green beauty products. And what we found is it's primarily environmentally conscious millennials and health conscious Generation X and baby boomers who really are driving growth in this particular segment.
And I see also that we're kind of leaning out of putting so much on our faces that we really are wanting to also have a healthy lifestyle with what we're putting inside our bodies, so then our faces and our skins will radiate, and then using beauty products that will complement. I'm kind of finding that in that's what I'm striving for to do, because it really comes in from the inside out. My question also is, you talk about celebrity worship when it comes to makeup. What do you mean by that?
Well, celebrity beauty endorsements. So we know that the beauty industry, all of us women, any of us who read or subscribe to women's fashion magazines, we're aware of the fact that celebrity as a source or and we call it's a source or spokesperson format, are used very liberally. Why? Because they work. Because people can identify with celebrity, and it also increases brand recall, conviction, and all of the things that beauty marketers are looking for. So if I see an ad, let's say with Nicole Kidman in it, and I actually admire Nicole Kidman, I may wish to emulate or aspire to what her beauty appearance or values are. So if she's pitching a product, I may actually use it because I may be swayed by her because I like her and admire her.
Yes, I think that's very powerful that there is that kind of following, and it's very important to take note that, you mentioned branding, and a lot of the celebrities, a lot of public figures out there, it's a brand of theirs, and if you are following them, you also have to make sure that if it works for them, it may or may not work for you, and have that kind of level of just wisdom to lead you through that, because everybody's skin type is so different. But I think that's super important. I know that body image is also a big area here in your book. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, one thing that I do talk about, which I find problematic, is there is something called the thin ideal media. And thin ideal media incorporates extremely thin characters or people, in case of perhaps fashion models or celebrities, in their messaging and programming, and equate that once again as an advantageous trait. Now, where the danger comes in is we found studies that heavy viewers of these thin ideal messages will think that thinness is a norm with the potential of striving for that norm. And by not meeting it, it could create some body disturbance, body image issues. So that is actually one of the issues that is mentioned in that chapter, and I think a very important topic in that chapter.
I agree with you. You write here, what you view can hurt you. And that is very important to understand that what you're bringing in, not only to your heart, to your mind, and then what you're putting on as well. We need to just make sure that we take all those thoughts captive, and that we are able to use wisdom. Comparison is so discouraging, heartbreaking, and in a believer, comparison is not of God. We say that because it can really break you and discourage you to the point that can take you down a slippery slope that you can never come back out of. So you talk about the toxic mirror. Wow, just hearing those two words together, I already visualize something. Can you expand a little bit about that?
Well, in the context of social media, the question becomes, is the social media doing harm when it comes to body image concerns? And there is some research to show, especially among young people, young adolescents, that those individuals who are using, specifically, as we know, on social media provides those online editors and filters, and the temptation to doctor your let's say your profile picture or any of your images and posting it because you're going after the likes, right?
Right.
And so research has shown that people who are more susceptible to having these body image disturbances as a result of doing this are the people that are constantly posting and comparing their appearance, just as you had indicated, to other people's photos. And this could potentially cause harm to especially young girls or young adolescents, but to boys too. We can't ignore the effect that social media has had, potential issues that boys will have too.
You're absolutely right. It's a universal concern. And if you start taking in all of what you think somebody else will like, then it really leads to a road of destruction. Your book is really a wealth of information. I'm so thankful that we have had this time to talk made up. And if people want to reach out to you, ask you questions, what's the best way for them to reach you, Martha?
Well, they are welcome to reach me. I'm a college professor, so they can reach me at the college. I can provide you what that email address is now.
Yes.
Also, the book is available, just to let your viewers know. It's available at all the usual places and online bookstores. It's also available at Walmart, which is everywhere.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I love how this last thing, we're about to break, but it says every body is beautiful. Every body is beautiful. Martha, you are beautiful. May God continue to bless you as you share your wisdom with so many people in this time when we need it so much. Thank you for having this conversation with me.
It was all my pleasure. Thank you, Sandra.